When my daughter told me I had 48 hours to leave my own home of 25 years, I collapsed into tears on our imported marble floor. 7 days later, I was sitting across from my husband's secret attorney discovering the will that would change everything. That's when I realized that family loyalty is like designer clothing, beautiful on the surface but often coming apart at the seams. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a mountain highway, and you'll want to be buckled in for the ride. My name is Helena. For 25 years, I was Mrs. Helena Fernandez, wife of Alberto Fernandez, one of the most successful real estate developers in the city. Our wedding photos showed a young couple with bright eyes and brighter dreams, me in a designer gown, him in a tailored tuxedo that cost more than my father's car. I had been a promising architect when we met, with plans for innovative sustainable housing. But love changed my blueprint. You don't need to work, Alberto had insisted, his warm hands enveloping mine. I want to give you the world. And foolishly, I let him. I became the perfect corporate wife instead, hosting dinner parties, attending charity galas, and raising our daughter, Sophia. Sophia was our miracle baby. After 3 miscarriages, her birth felt like winning the lottery. I poured everything into her, my dreams, my love, my time. I read to her every night, planned educational vacations, and cheered at every piano recital and soccer game. When she graduated from business school, I thought my heart might burst with pride. I never saw the cracks forming in our perfect family portrait until they became canyons too wide to cross. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because I was planning the menu for our anniversary dinner. 25 years deserved something special. I was thinking about Alberto's favorite seafood paella when Sophia walked in, designer heels clicking against the floor like a countdown timer. "Mother, we need to talk," she said, her voice colder than I'd ever heard it. She placed a folder on the kitchen island between us. "These are legal documents transferring ownership of the house. You need to sign them and vacate the property by Thursday. Script part separator ===." I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. "Sophia, what are you talking about? This is my home." She flipped her sleek dark hair just like mine before I let it go gray, and sighed like I was a child who couldn't understand basic instructions. "Technically, it's Dad's home. He's restructuring his assets for tax purposes, and this property needs to be transferred to the holding company." "Where's Alberto?" I asked, my voice shaking. "I need to speak with him. He's in Dubai closing a deal. He asked me to handle this." She pushed the folder closer. "It's a simple business decision, Mother. Nothing personal. Nothing personal." 25 years of marriage, and I was being evicted like a tenant behind on rent. "I'm not signing anything until I speak with your father." Sophia's perfectly made-up face hardened. "He won't be back for weeks. These papers need to be processed now. Then I'll call him." I reached for my phone, but Sophia's next words stopped me cold. "He won't take your call. This was his idea, Mother. Why do you think he left me in charge?" That's when my world truly began to crumble. I called Alberto repeatedly that night. Texts, voicemails, emails, all unanswered. By morning, my bank card was declined at the grocery store. By afternoon, the household staff had been dismissed. By evening, the locks were changed while I was out desperately meeting with a friend who happened to be a lawyer. "They can't just throw you out," Margaret said, reviewing the prenuptial agreement I'd signed when I was young, in love, and stupidly trusting. "But this doesn't look good, Helena. Did you ever get Alberto to add your name to the deed?" I hadn't. There had never seemed to be a reason. We were a team, a partnership, or so I thought. When I returned home that night, my key wouldn't work. Sophia answered the door, security guards flanking her like silent sentinels. "Your things are in storage," she said, handing me a paper with an address. "The company is covering 3 months' rent at the Palms Apartments." Dad thought that was generous. Script part separator ===. I stood there, feeling the weight of betrayal press against my chest until I could barely breathe. De Paus Apartments. It was a sterile mid-range complex on the outskirts of town where divorcees and retired teachers lived. Not the kind of place Alberto would even drive past. "Sophia," I whispered, searching her eyes for any trace of the little girl who once crawled into my bed during thunderstorms. Why are you doing this? Business is business, Mother. She adjusted her Cartier watch. Dad says you've grown complacent, entitled. 25 years of luxury without contributing anything substantial. The words sliced through me like a serrated knife. I gave up my career for this family. For you. Nobody asked you to, she replied with a shrug that dismissed 2 decades of school lunches, bandaged knees, and midnight fever vigils. That was your choice. One of the security guards cleared his throat uncomfortably. Miss Fernandez, we should proceed. Sophia nodded. Your car has been returned to the leasing company. There's an Uber waiting to take you to your new accommodation. I didn't cry. Not then. Something inside me had frozen solid, preserving my dignity like an insect in amber.
Ival que to the waiting car with my head high, clutching only my purse and the sotorage address.
The Palms was exactly as I'd imagined, beige carpeting, popcorn ceilings, and the faint smell of disappointment. The furnished unit contained none of my personal items, just generic department store basics. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the bland watercolor of a sunset that someone had deemed cheerful enough for the wall. That's when my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. Villa Paradiso tomorrow, 10 a.m.
Come alone. Tel Nuan.
Villa Paradiso was Alberto's first successful development. Luxury condos that put him on the map 20 years ago.
Someone there knew something.
For the first time since Sophia had walked into my kitchen, I felt a flicker of hope. I barely slept that night, my mind racing through memories, searching for clues I might have missed. Had Alberto been planning this for years? Was there another woman? And most painfully, how had my sweet Sophia turned into this cold-blooded stranger? Script part separator, The next morning, I dressed carefully in one of the few decent outfits that had made it to the apartment. My wedding ring caught the light as I reached for my purse. I hesitated, then defiantly left it on. 25 years of marriage wouldn't be erased by Sophia's betrayal. Villa Paradiso stood like a monument to Alberto's early success, a gleaming white complex with Mediterranean touches. The security guard recognized me immediately. Mrs. Fernandez. It's been years. Mr. Fernandez didn't mention you were coming. My stomach tightened. Is my husband here? No, ma'am. He hasn't visited in months. Following his directions to the management office, I found myself face to face with Eduardo Vasquez, Alberto's former business partner. They'd had a falling out 15 years ago, a messy split that Alberto refused to discuss. Helena, Eduardo said, rising from behind his desk. You look, well, considering my husband and daughter threw me out like yesterday's garbage? He gestured to a chair. That's why I contacted you. What they've done isn't just cruel, it's illegal. My heart raced. What do you mean? Eduardo slid a folder across his desk. Inside were documents showing Alberto had transferred properties worth millions into Sophia's name over the past 2 years. He's hiding assets, Eduardo explained. Tax evasion, possibly fraud. I've been tracking his movements since our partnership dissolved. He owes me, and I intend to collect. Why tell me this? His smile was cold. Revenge is sweeter when shared, don't you think? Besides, you have something I need. I have nothing, I said bitterly. They've taken everything. Not everything. Eduardo leaned forward. You have 25 years of access to Alberto's life. Passwords, routines, connections. And most importantly, a knock interrupted us. Eduardo's assistant entered, whispering urgently in his ear. His expression darkened. We need to go. Now. Alberto's security team is in the lobby. As we slipped out the back door, my phone rang. Sophia. Mother, her voice was tight with anger. What are you doing with Eduardo Vasquez? My blood went cold. They were watching me. Script part separator, I hung up without answering. Eduardo guided me to his car, speeding away from Villa Paradiso. They're tracking your phone, he said, taking a sharp turn onto a side street. They probably have GPS on it. I immediately shut it off and removed the battery like I'd seen in spy movies. Eduardo nodded approvingly. Alberto always underestimated you. That's his weakness.
We drove to a small cafe in a neighborhood I'd never visited, the kind of place Alberto would consider beneath him. Over strong coffee, Eduardo laid out what he knew. Alberto's empire is built on sand, he explained. He's over-leveraged, borrowing from one project to fund another. The recession hit him harder than anyone realized.
That's impossible, I protested. We live like royalty. Sophia's condo alone cost $3 million. Eduardo's laugh was bitter. Appearances, Helena. It's all about appearances in Alberto's world. He showed me bank statements, loan documents, and threatening letters from creditors, all obtained through methods I chose not to question. If he's in financial trouble, why push me out now? I asked. Because of the anniversary clause in his will, Eduardo said, watching my face carefully. Don't tell me you didn't know. The blank expression on my face answered for me. 25 years of marriage triggers automatic asset division. Half of everything becomes legally yours, regardless of prenups or property titles. Alberto's been planning this for months, transferring assets to Sophia, establishing offshore accounts, creating a paper trail showing marital discord. My hands trembled as I processed this information. So this isn't about tax restructuring or me being complacent. It's about Alberto avoiding sharing his wealth. Eduardo nodded. And now Sophia is his accomplice. The golden child protecting Daddy's empire. And what do you want from me? I asked, suddenly wary of my new ally. Partnership, he said simply. I have evidence of Alberto's financial misdeeds. You have legal standing as his wife. Together, we can bring him down and get what we both deserve. Script part separator ===. I stared at Eduardo, weighing his offer. Did I want revenge? Yes. But I also wanted justice. I need time to think, I said, rising from the table. Eduardo handed me a burner phone. 3 days, Helena. After that, Alberto will have moved everything offshore. I spent the night in a budget motel, paid cash. No credit cards, no trail. My mind raced with memories. Sophia's 5th birthday when Alberto surprised us with a pony, our 20th anniversary in Santorini, the way he'd kiss my forehead every morning before leaving for work. Had it all been pretense? A calculated investment in the perfect family man image? By morning, I'd made my decision. I called Eduardo. I'm in, but we do this my way.
Non derande tactics.
Your moral high ground might cost us everything, he warned. Then so be it. My first move was unexpected. I called Margaret, my lawyer friend, and had her arrange a meeting with Sophia at her office. No Alberto, no security guards. Just mother and daughter. Sophia arrived in a power suit, her expression guarded. Make this quick. I have a board meeting at 11. Do you remember when you were 7, I asked calmly, and you broke Mrs. Abernathy's antique vase? Her brow furrowed. What does that have to do with anything? You were so scared of getting in trouble. But instead of hiding it, you came to me crying, and we glued it back together. Mother, I taught you honesty, Sophia. So tell me honestly, does it feel good betraying me? Her composure cracked, just slightly. This isn't betrayal. It's business. I slid Eduardo's folder across the table. Is tax fraud business too? Money laundering? Because that's what you've become part of. The color drained from her face as she scanned the documents. These are fake, she whispered, but without conviction. Your father's empire is crumbling, Sophia. And he's making you complicit in his crimes. Script part separator ===. Sophia's hands trembled as she flipped through the documents. Her perfectly manicured nails, the same shade of red I'd worn for decades, tapped nervously against the table. I don't believe you, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Dad wouldn't involve me in anything illegal. The same dad who convinced you to throw your mother out of her home? I leaned forward. He's using you, Sophia. As a shield, as a pawn. Her eyes flashed with anger. He's given me everything. A career, connections, opportunities you couldn't dream of providing. The words stung, but I kept my composure. And in return, you're risking prison. Money laundering carries a 15-year sentence. Margaret, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. Ms. Fernandez, these documents suggest serious financial crimes. As your mother's attorney, I strongly advise you to distance yourself from these transactions. Sophia slammed the folder shut. I need to speak with Dad. He's unreachable, I said. Convenient, isn't it? You're left holding the bag while he's negotiating his exit strategy. That's not true. But doubt had crept into her voice. Then call him, I challenged. Right now. Sophia pulled out her phone, dialed, and waited. Her face fell as it went to voicemail. She tried again with the same result. He's in meetings, she insisted. Or he's abandoned you, just like he abandoned me. This meeting is over. Sophia stood abruptly, gathering the documents. I'm taking these to our attorneys. They're copies, Margaret said calmly. The originals are being reviewed by the Financial Crimes Division as we speak. It was a bluff, but Sophia didn't know that. She paled visibly. You're bluffing, she whispered. I stood, feeling stronger than I had in days. Try me. Script part separator ===. As Sophia rushed out, Margaret turned to me. That was a dangerous game you're playing, Helena. If Alberto is as ruthless as you say. He is, I confirmed. But I'm done being a victim. The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. Eduardo arranged a meeting with a forensic accountant who confirmed our suspicions. Alberto had been siphoning money for years, creating a complex web of shell companies and offshore accounts. This level of financial engineering takes time, the accountant explained, pointing to transaction dates. He's been planning this for at least 3 years. 3 years. While I was planning anniversary surprises and family vacations, my husband was plotting my financial demise. The breaking point came on Thursday morning when my burner phone rang at 5 a.m. Helena, it's Eduardo. They're moving faster than anticipated. Alberto's flying back today. My heart raced. I thought he was in Dubai for weeks. Apparently Sophia's panic accelerated his timeline. My source says they're meeting with their attorneys at noon to finalize the offshore transfers. I had hours, not days. What do? We need leverage. Something to stop the transfers. An idea formed, dangerous, possibly illegal, but necessary. The safe, I whispered. In Alberto's home office. He keeps emergency documents there. Can you access it? If I can get into the house. That's impossible, Eduardo argued. The security. Not for Maria, I interrupted. Maria had been our housekeeper for 20 years before Sophia dismissed her. She has the service entrance codes. They never change them. One call to Maria secured not just access, but an ally burning with her own resentment. By 8 a.m., I was slipping through the service entrance of what had been my home for 25 years. Script part separator ===. The house felt both familiar and foreign as I crept through the kitchen where I'd prepared countless meals. Family photos still lined the hallway, smiling faces preserving the illusion of happiness. I moved silently toward Alberto's office, Maria keeping watch downstairs. The office door was locked, but I knew where Alberto kept the spare key, taped under the antique console table in the hallway. Some habits never change. Inside, everything was immaculate as always, Alberto's obsession with order evident in the perfectly aligned desk items. The safe was behind his grandfather's oil painting, a hiding place so cliché it almost made me laugh. My fingers trembled as inter de combination, Sophia's birthday. The one sentimental choice in Alberto's methodical life. The safe door swung open, revealing stacks of documents, several passports, and a velvet box containing his mother's jewelry, pieces he'd promised would be mine someday. I ignored the emotional punch and focused on the task, photographing everything with the burner phone's camera. That's when I found it, a second will, dated just 3 months ago, tucked behind insurance policies. As I skimmed the contents, my breath caught. This wasn't just ammunition, it was a nuclear weapon. What are you doing? I whirled around to find Sophia standing in the doorway, her expression a mixture of shock and fury. She must have returned unexpectedly. Finding the truth, I said, clutching the will to my chest. You're trespassing. She reached for her phone.
I'm calling security. Before you do that, I held up the document. You might want to see what your father really planned for you. Sophia hesitated, her finger hovering over her phone. What is that? Your father's contingency plan. In case you ever became inconvenient. Script part separator equals. Her curiosity won over caution. She stepped into the office, closing the door behind her. Let me see that, she demanded. I held it just out of reach. Not until you agree to hear me out completely. No interruptions, no security calls. Sophia's eyes narrowed, but she nodded curtly. I handed her the document, watching as her face transformed from skepticism to disbelief to horror. This can't be real, she whispered, flipping through the pages. Dad wouldn't cut you out if you failed to protect his assets? That's exactly what he'd do. I pointed to the clause she was reading. If you examine the section carefully, you'll see that your inheritance is contingent on successfully transferring property out of my reach. If contestando enfim, e o lose everything. The document trembled in her hands. He's using me as a human shield. Just like he used me for 25 years. I took a seat in Alberto's leather chair. Your father doesn't love people, Sophia. He collects them, uses them, discards them when they're no longer valuable. Tears welled in her eyes, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her in years. I trusted him. I've been working 80-hour weeks trying to prove myself. And the moment you fail, he'll replace you too. Each is right there in black and white. A noise downstairs made us both freeze. Maria appeared in the doorway, breathless. Mr. Fernandes just pulled into the driveway. With lawyers. Sophia looked from me to the will, then made a decision that shocked me. She grabbed my arm. The East Wing guest bathroom. It has a window to the side yard. Go now, Sophia. I'll distract him. You have 15 minutes before security does their rounds. As I slipped out, she called after me softly. Mom, be careful. The reconciliation felt tentative, fragile, but real. Outside, I met Eduardo at our rendezvous point, my hands shaking as I showed him what I'd found. This changes everything, he said, studying the documents. But we need to move fast. Alberto will realize what's missing. Sophia knows the truth now. She might help us. Eduardo looked skeptical. Don't count on family loyalty. Alberto's been poisoning her against you for years. She's still my daughter, I insisted. And Alberto's protégé, he countered. Don't forget that. Script part separator equals. That night, I waited anxiously in my motel room, jumping at every noise outside. Eduardo had taken the documents to his attorney, promising to call with a strategy. The burner phone remained silent until just after midnight when a text appeared, East Side Diner. 7 Uhr morgens. I arrived early, choosing a booth with a clear view of both entrances. The waitress had just refilled my coffee when Sophia walked in, looking nothing like the polished executive who'd evicted me. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her face bare of makeup, wearing jeans and a sweater I'd given her 2 Christmases ago. Mom, she said, sliding into the booth. We don't have much time. You came, I whispered, fighting the urge to reach for her hand. Dad knows the will is missing. I've never seen him like this. Her voice trembled. He fired 3 security guards and threatened to sue the monitoring company. Are you in danger? Sophia shook her head. He still thinks I'm on his side. But he's moving everything offshore today. Emergency transfers, liquidating assets. What about the contingency will? He claims it was a draft, a negotiating tactic he never intended to execute. She met my eyes. He's lying. I checked the company records. He's been systematically cutting me out of decision-making for months while making it look like promotions. I finally reached across, covering her hand with mine. I'm sorry, Sophia. I'm the one who should apologize. I believed everything he said about you. That you were financially irresponsible, that you'd tried to sabotage deals. She swallowed hard. That you'd had affairs. The accusation hit like a physical blow. What? He has photos, emails, all fabricated, I realize now.
Sophia pulled out her phone, showing me a hidden folder. I found these on the company's server. He's been building a case against you for years. Script part separator, I stared at the doctored photos showing me with various men I'd never met, fake email exchanges, even hotel receipts. The systematic destruction of my character, meticulously crafted by the man who vowed to love me forever. Is this why you believed him so easily? Because he made me into a villain? Sophia nodded, shame coloring her cheeks. He showed me these when I questioned why you weren't on property deeds. Said you tried to steal from the company to fund your affairs. I felt physically ill. For 3 years, he'd been poisoning my daughter against me while I remained oblivious, planning family dinners and anniversary surprises. We don't have time to process this now, Sophia said urgently. Dad's meeting with the offshore bankers at noon. Once those transfers go through, everything's untouchable. What can we do? I've been thinking about that. Sophia leaned forward. The company's annual shareholder meeting is tomorrow. Everyone will be there, investors, board members, media. So we expose him. Publicly. With evidence that can't be dismissed. Eduardo had suggested something similar, but hearing it from Sophia gave me pause. That would destroy your father's reputation. The company would collapse. The company is already collapsing, Mom. She pulled out more documents. These are the real financials. We're months away from bankruptcy. Dad's been cooking the books. And you'd be willing to expose that? You'd lose everything too. Sophia's jaw tightened in a way that reminded me startlingly of myself. I'd rather lose everything honestly than keep anything built on lies. Script part separator, I squeezed Sophia's hand, a surge of pride replacing the hurt that had consumed me for days. This wouldn't be easy for either of us. We need irrefutable evidence, I said. Not just of the financial fraud, but of how he manipulated us both. I have the fabricated photos and emails, Sophia offered, and copies of the real financials showing the company's actual position. Good, but not enough. Alberto would claim they were altered or taken out of context. We needed something that came directly from him. Sophia's eyes suddenly lit up. His recorded meetings. What? Dad records all his important meetings. Says it's for accurate minutes, but really it's so he can catch people in contradictions later. She lowered her voice. Including his legal team. Attorney-client conversations about how to hide assets, falsify documents. That's illegal, I whispered. Exactly. The system backs up to the secure server. I have access. My daughter, the unexpected ally, had just handed me the key to everything. But a nagging doubt remained. Sophia, are you absolutely certain about this? Once we do this, there's no going back. Your father will never forgive you. She stared down at her untouched coffee. He was never going to forgive any perceived failure anyway. I see that now. She looked up, eyes glistening. I'd rather be your daughter than his puppet. We spent the next 3 hours in Sophia's apartment, downloading files, organizing evidence, and creating a presentation that would leave no room for Alberto's denials. Eduardo joined us, bringing his forensic accountant and a sympathetic board member who'd suspected irregularities but lacked proof. By nightfall, we had everything we needed. The shareholder meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. Alberto would be making his annual address, announcing record profits that didn't exist and expansion plans funded by money that had already disappeared. Sleep was impossible that night. I paced my motel room, rehearsing what I would say when facing Alberto. Would he show remorse? Rage? Or that cold, calculating indifference that I now realized had always lurked beneath his charm? The Westbrook Hotel's grand ballroom was already packed when we arrived. Financial reporters clustered near the stage, board members in their assigned seats, investors chatting over coffee. Alberto stood at the center of a group of admirers, laughing confidently, his hand on the shoulder of a young executive. He looked exactly like the successful businessman I'd married, polished, charismatic, utterly in control. Then he saw me. The smile froze on his face, eyes widening in genuine shock before narrowing with cold fury. He excused himself and strode toward us, security moving to intercept before he waved them off. Helena, he hissed, gripping my elbow. What are you doing here? Before I could answer, Sophia stepped forward. I invited her, Dad. The betrayal hit him visibly. He staggered slightly, looking from Sophia to me, then to Eduardo who stood slightly behind us. You three have no idea what you're doing, Alberto said, his voice dangerously low. Actually, we know exactly what we're doing, I replied, pulling free of his grip. Telling the truth. The board chairman approached, concern evident on his face. Alberto, is everything all right? We're ready to begin.
Fine, Richard.
Just a family matter. Alberto's mask slipped back into place. I'll be right there. As the chairman walked away, Alberto leaned close to us. Whatever you think you know, whatever you're planning, stop now. I'm giving you one chance. Sophia straightened her shoulders. Like the chance you gave Mom? Or the contingency you prepared for me? Color drained from his face. Sophia. It's time for your presentation, Dad, she said coldly. Your audience is waiting. As Alberto reluctantly moved toward the stage, Sophia squeezed my hand. Ready. I nodded, feeling strangely calm. The betrayal, the hurt, the confusion, all transformed into quiet determination. Ready. The shareholders' meeting became the stage for Alberto's downfall. As he confidently began his presentation about record profits and expansion plans, I watched the faces of board members, some skeptical, others adoring. He was halfway through describing a revolutionary new development project when I approached the stage. Excuse me, I said, my voice stronger than I'd expected.
I believe deixar eu dizer the truth about Fernandes Enterprises. Alberto's face darkened.
Security, he snapped, remove my wife. She's not well. 2 guards moved toward me, but Sophia stepped forward. As executive vice president, I'm invoking Bylaw 17. 3 allowing presentation of material evidence affecting company valuation. The board chairman looked confused. Ms. Fernandez, this is highly irregular. So is fraud, Eduardo said, standing. And that's what we're here to expose. The room erupted in murmurs as I connected my laptop to the projection system. Alberto lunged toward me, but 2 board members restrained him. Helena, don't do this, he hissed. Think about our family. I looked him directly in the eyes. I am. The first slide appeared, Alberto's secret will with the clause disinheriting Sophia if she failed to protect his assets from me. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. 3 years ago, I began, my voice steady. Alberto Fernandez began systematically transferring company assets offshore while presenting falsified financial statements to this board. Next came the doctored photos he'd used to poison Sophia against me, followed by recordings of Alberto instructing his attorneys to create fraudulent documents. Last week, I was thrown out of my home of 25 years as part of this scheme to prevent me from claiming my legal share of marital assets, I continued. But what Alberto didn't realize was that his fraud extended far beyond our marriage. Sophia stepped forward with the real financial reports. Fernandez Enterprises is not expanding. It's 3 months from bankruptcy.
These are the actual numbers.
Alberto lunged for the microphone. This is a personal vendetta.
My bitter wife and confused daughter.
Your own voice on those recordings tells a different story, Eduardo interrupted. The chairman stood, ashen-faced.
Alberto, is this true?
Of course not.
Alberto snapped.
They've manipulated those recordings. That's when Sophia played the final clip, Alberto speaking just yesterday to his offshore banker. Once these transfers are complete, the company can implode for all I care. I'll be untouchable in Geneva with the real assets while the shareholders hold worthless paper. The room exploded in chaos. Investors shouted questions, reporters frantically took notes, and board members huddled in urgent conversation. Through it all, Alberto stood frozen, watching his carefully constructed world collapse. Security guards, different ones this time, approached Alberto rather than me. The board chairman spoke quietly to them, and they flanked Alberto on either side. The board is calling an emergency session, the chairman announced. Mr. Fernandez will remain in the building. No one leaves until federal authorities arrive. As Alberto was escorted from the ballroom, he locked eyes with me one last time. The hatred there should have frightened me, but instead, I felt only pity. He'd had everything, success, family, respect, and lost it all to greed. Sophia slipped her hand into mine as reporters swarmed around us.
Mon, she whispered, let's go somewhere quiet.
We retreated to a small conference room, Eduardo standing guard outside. For the first time since this nightmare began, I allowed myself to cry, not from pain this time, but release. I'm so sorry, Sophia said, tears streaming down her face. I believed him. I treated you terribly. I held my daughter close. He manipulated both of us. But never again.
The aftermath unfolded like a hurricane.
Alberto was arrested that afternoon. The company's stock plummeted, then was suspended from trading. Financial crimes investigators seized computers and files from every Fernandez Enterprises office. 1 week later, sitting in Margaret's law office, I learned the extent of Alberto's crimes, and my unexpected salvation. The courts have frozen most assets pending investigation, Margaret explained, but there's one property they can't touch. Which one? I asked, expecting nothing. Margaret smiled. Your mother-in-law's villa in Tuscany.
Alberto transferred it solely to you on your 20th anniversary.
It's the only property not connected to the company or any fraudulent activity.